fintech companies are moving into the regulatory environment, and they're doing it with a lot of spearheading. Starting to see a level play field where we're seeing financial inclusion, we're seeing innovation, we're seeing competitiveness, and we're starting to also see interoperability. You have to innovate to stay ahead of your game all the time, and we have. Once pioneers in the financial space, now leading technologies, with Altron FinTech, drive our capability to innovation and regulatory compliance in the industry. Safety, security, data, information, all of that is incredibly important to us. You have to keep it safe, secure. You have to have a trusted environment. And in order to have a trusted environment, we have to ensure that we have regulatory compliance in check.
Welcome to yet another episode on all things Altron FinTech, the podcast where we dive deep into the heart of FinTech and explore trends, innovations, and shaping the financial landscape. I'm your host, Kutlwano, and today we're tackling a topic that sits at the very core of the industry, risk and compliance. In a world where regulations are constantly evolving and the stakes are higher than ever, understanding risk management and compliance is not just important, it is essential for survival. Whether you're a startup navigating your first audit or a seasoned pro like today's guest, looking to stay ahead of the curve, this episode will equip you with the insights you need to protect your business and build trust with your customers. So sit back, grab your notepad, and let's explore the critical role of risk and compliance in FinTech. Hi, Monica, and thank you for joining us today. Now, for those that don't know you, can you just tell us a bit about yourself and your role at Altron FinTech?
Hi, Katlana. Thank you for having me. A seasoned pro, I'd have to question that, but let's give it a go anyway. So I'm Monica Peethum-Nanoo, and I'm a head risk and compliance for Altron FinTech. I've been in the industry for about more than 20 years, and my background is purely in the payment card industry, or the payment landscape as such. I was around when the first payments hit our environment more than 20 years ago, and I'm still around to see it evolve into the new rails, the new payment, the digitization of payment today. So, that's me.
Right, so today we're talking about a topic that you're very passionate about. Let's dive right in. Regulatory compliance in the fintech industry has become increasingly complex. Can you start by giving us an overview of the current regulatory landscape for fintech companies?
Yeah, Katlana. So it's true. In the past, we saw the regulatory environment sit very much in the banking world. The fintech companies out there played on the outer core, the outer layers of the payment and the fringements of the payment landscape. And we're now starting to see the regulatory environment become more enhanced in the fintech companies. We saw our governance change over the last couple of years to include financial inclusion, to include operability. We saw the regulatory legislators become more into deep dives into the fintech environment and fintech companies. And the challenges out there for fintech companies are huge. The cost of compliance is incredibly high as well. So we've seen the regulators now dive in and understand that there needs to be balance across the board. There needs to be, regulation, but what works for one won't work for the other. So we're starting to see a level play field where we're seeing financial inclusion, we're seeing innovation, we're seeing competitiveness, and we're starting to also see interoperability, where the governance is allowing fintech companies to enter into these platform bases so that they can play in the same field as others, So we're starting to see those challenges. Very difficult space, incredibly challenging environment. as we see the threats, the cybersecurity threats hits our environment, the different threat layers attack the financial space. But fintech companies are moving into the regulatory environment, and they're doing it with a lot of spearheading. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that comprehensive overview. With so many regulations to adhere to, what are some of the biggest challenges that fintech companies face in achieving compliance?
Well, I think some of the biggest challenges are cost bases. The cost of compliance, like I alluded to earlier, is incredibly high for fintech companies. And we're starting to understand that, and we're starting to make it easier for fintech companies to play in the space that they play in, so that they can gradually enter into a regulated space. But also, the regulation is starting to now play out and level out fintech organizations in comparison to the banking platforms that are out there. So there is a gradual path that's becoming easier, and a journey that's becoming much easier for fintechs to get into. And we can also see that with regard to the interruptibility of the different strategies that we are facing, fintechs are now moving into the space far more easier and are being given the opportunity to move into the space where in the past there wasn't that opportunity. Yeah.
Very true. So in this day of technology, innovation is indeed a double-edged sword in this industry. Speaking of which, how do you think fintech companies can strike the right balance between innovation and regulatory compliance?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, we start to see that that fintech companies, they're highly innovative. We see at Altron FinTech, you have to innovate to stay ahead of your game all the time. And we have, once pioneers in the financial space, now leading technologies, with Altron FinTech, drive our capability to innovation and regulatory compliance in the industry. And it's a journey that you have to balance out. You have to keep mobility in both arenas in order to stay ahead of the game. You have to meet regulatory compliance, legislative compliance, and you have to keep innovation ahead of the game. So they don't work hand in hand. They're different journeys, but they do collide. And sometimes you find with regulatory compliance and legislation, your innovation leads you into the different spheres of rails that are out there in the payment landscape today. So we're starting to see, the different layers of regulatory compliance and the journey you have to take to get there. But we can't lag behind in innovation, because with the digitization of payments, the fast pace, the agility of payments today has become incredible in the industry. So, we have to keep innovation at leading pace in order to also keep regulatory compliance on the same path that we meet compliance. Safety, security, data, information, all of that is incredibly important to us. You have to keep it safe, secure. You have to have a trusted environment. And in order to have a trusted environment, we have to ensure that we have regulatory compliance in check, So, and that's what it really is about.
Yeah. Now, Monica, in business, it is a given that there will be challenges along the way. Can you discuss a recent example where Altron FinTech successfully navigated a regulatory challenge, and what were the lessons that were learned from that experience?
Yeah, so, along with the new legislations that are coming that are entering our environment, like the cybersecurity legislation that's just hit our environment and our platform as such, we've used, artificial intelligence. We've used the leading technologies out there to map out our compliance journeys to some of the legislations out there. And the AI tools have brought about an improved efficiency in our environment. And it's taken, it's reduced our time factor, drastically. or incredibly to ensure that we meet all of these regulatory compliances and legislations. And having, AI out there, we have to be so careful what we use, how we use it, whether we use it in a risk-based environment, which we have, whether we used it in mapping our regulatory compliances to our legislations that are now entering our environment. We have to just be careful of what data is inputted and what data we get out of it, in the AI world today. But definitely, the tool sets and the methodologies are worth investigating, worthwhile getting into, worthwhile utilizing to improve efficiencies across the board. We've seen it in the Altron FinTech environment where we are payment card industry compliant, we are EMV compliant, we have point-to-point encryptions technologies. We also have, the different tool sets and the risk-based frameworks that bring about a collaboration of all of this that brings about greater efficiency. So utilizing AI tools and for innovation has some advantages, but with a careful thought process behind it. Yeah.
True. Cybersecurity must always be at the back of our minds. So now we are talking risk management. What are some of the key risks that fintech companies need to be aware of, and how can they effectively manage these risks?
Yeah, so the fintech risks out there are, we have to be so careful as a fintech company that when we see the emerging risks that hit our platform bases, cybersecurity is not at the back of our minds. I have to assure you, it's at the forefront of everything we do. We see cybersecurity, information technology, all of these data capturing, to ensure that, that all data is securely protected, right? And is trusted within our environment, encrypted, so that it cannot be infiltrated. But all the layers of security, with penetration testing, vulnerability scanning, the different threat mechanisms out there to detect the different risks that hit our platform. We have to be really, really aware, of emerging risks in the fintech space, Also taking into consideration the different payment landscapes, the different rails out there, the regulatory changes out there, we have to consider all of that into our whole risk basket as such and we're seeing a lot of collaboration now. We're seeing IT governance, collaborating into risk management methodology. So even before you do a major change in environment, risk has to be taken into consideration. And besides that, enterprise risk is one of the things that, we have to just make sure that we have always, sitting at the forefront. Emerging risks in our environment, like, the cost of skill sets, scarce skills in our environment, all of that, cybersecurity being one of them. We have to stay ahead of the game and ensure that we mitigate, we migrate, we treat this risk, we're aware of it, their risk exposure, our risk appetite frameworks are all encapsulated to manage the risk in this fintech space. Yeah.
Right. Those are some great tips. Given the global nature of fintech, how do companies navigate the complexities of regulatory compliance across different jurisdictions?
Yeah, so, across different jurisdictions, you see different regulatory compliances. When you're entering into a new territory, you have to ensure that you understand the risk exposure. What are the regulatory, landscape looks like? What are the regulatory legislations in the environment? And how you go about working towards them to balance out that you meet regulation with innovation, with compliance, and you still have leading competitive advantage in the industry. So make sure we do our homework. Make sure we check what are the jurisdictions, regulatory environment, who are the payment bodies, how do we work with them, and we work through that process in each jurisdiction and each territory that we go into. Yeah.
All right. Like Monica, you just said collaboration seems to be the key, right? What role do you think regulators themselves can play in supporting the growth and innovation of the fintech industry while ensuring compliance?
Well, we've seen it today in the South African financial payment landscape. We've seen the regulators come on board and say, we want to open out the landscape to all role players, And we start to see that the financial inclusions and the different rails and the digitization of payments in the industry, we also start to see the platform grow, to include banks, non-bank service providers, And we're starting to see the regulators now communicate through openness, transparency, the drive for innovation, competitiveness, financial inclusion, interoperability as well in the industry. So I think the regulators have now seen the greater need to open out, the payment processes to the fintech companies out there. They've seen the importance of the fintech companies. How do you get to to the man on the street, and how do you get to the areas that some of our larger corporations don't get to? And they've seen fintech companies grow in these territories over the years. And they're starting to include the fintech companies into this landscape. They're starting to provide mechanisms, methodologies to say, fintechs, you can now go into this space. You can approach us directly. We can have open communication. We can see the value you bring into the payment landscape, financial landscape. And it's actually such synergies it's dynamic energy that we're seeing currently. There's such momentum in this financial landscape currently, and the regulators have come on board in our own environment.
That's an excellent point. We are making sure that we're not leaving anyone behind.
Yes, agreed.
So looking ahead, what emerging trends do you see in regulatory compliance and risk management that fintech companies should prepare for?
So we fintech companies, we're leveraging on ahead. We're flying at high speeds with agility. We're not diving without the lenses. We're diving with the correct set of lenses. So we just got to be very, very, very. We got to take cognizance of the regulatory environment that's out there. Be careful we don't overstep the bounds. Make sure we're sitting on the regulatory framework. And we've just got to ensure that, whatever we do, we provide a very secure, trusted environment like we do at FinTech, Altron FinTech, secure, safe, trusted environment that at the end of the day, our clients, our customers that come to us are assured that their data is protected, that it's safe, secure, that their payment transactions that we process are all safe, secure, to our utmost level of security.
Right, here at FinTech, we are simplifying all these complexities. So touching a little bit on GDPR and Popeye, how does Altron FinTech ensure data privacy and security in compliance with global regulations?
Yeah, so at Altron FinTech, we take GDPR, we take all our data privacy regulations quite effectively into our organization. It's from design stage. So when we bring on a customer, we ensure that their data is protected, that we have constructive contractual agreements in place to ensure data privacy, data security, in our environment. And we also ensure that from the design process of bringing that customer on board through the full operational process, that data privacy is enhanced at each point in the organization, We also do a lot of training awareness with our own people, to ensure that they stay well ahead of the game and they understand that each jurisdiction requires a different level of regulatory compliance with regard to data, whether it's GDPR in one territory, whether it's Papaya in another territory. We tend to ensure that all data needs to be kept encrypted, safe, secure in our environment. As it moves across different territories or different channels, it needs to be encrypted in our environment, and we do our utmost to protect that data in our environment as such. Yeah.
So how does Altron FinTech stay ahead of evolving regulatory requirements, and what proactive measures are in place to anticipate future regulatory changes?
Yeah, so we've got different methodologies, different tool sets. We use different technologies in the environment to keep us ahead of the game. That talks to us on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, yearly basis to say, these are the changing regulations that are coming about. Please be aware. We have different source trends as well that we keep an eye out for. With our ears close to the ground and our eyes all around us, we tend to ensure that the technologies speak to us with the processes that says, this is the regulatory environment that's hitting our space. There's different tool sets out there that one can utilize to ensure that you stay abreast and you ensure that you have the regulatory changes that are coming about. Yes, they're hitting us hard and fast. There's no doubt about that. But we have to stay on top of our game all the time here. We also have a great set of legals along with that keep us quite true to what we do. Yeah.
Monica, we love talking risk and compliance with you, but before we can let you go, do you have any final thoughts or advice for our listeners in the fintech industry?
Yeah, just a word from me. In the fintech industry, in the South African space, we're at an exciting momentum. We're at a great change mechanism in the industry. What an energy. You can see the agility, you can see the different stakeholders, role players, all moving and shaking to make things happen, to make us a very diverse, and again, simplifying, complexities. And that's what it really is about. It's about simplifying complexities in the space so that we can go through it on an easy journey in a fluid motion, and we can all work towards bringing about great innovation with also meeting regulatory compliance and ensuring that we have risk, covered at the end of the day. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Monica. And that wraps up today's episode on risk and compliance. I hope you've gained a deeper understanding of how crucial these elements are in building resilience and trustworthy financial platform. Remember, it is a fast-paced world of fintech. Staying compliant isn't just about avoiding penalties. It's about fostering innovation within a framework of security and trust. Thank you for tuning in on All Things Altron FinTech. If you found today's discussion valuable, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll continue to explore the cutting edge of fintech innovation. Until then, stay informed, stay compliant, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.